with Dr. Michael Jeffress, and who has been trending on social media because of his post. I think we have the post that we can share with you. We spoke to Shamla Maraj a little earlier on, and once we put up that post, you'll see that he put the post up, and in it he was talking about let's end dangerous behavior on the road. There it is. That's the picture that he was talking about. But his comments that went with it included, let's end dangerous behavior on the road, but stop dehumanizing disabled people on your mission there. How about consider the consequences of ads like this? Hashtag, there we go, hashtag ableist ad, hashtag ableism, hashtag disability. So on the line now, we have a lecturer in the communication, lecturer in communication in the Department of Literary, Cultural and Communication Studies at the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine, Trinidad, Dr. Michael Jeffress. Good morning.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Doc. And it's interesting that you are a lecturer in communication because what's wrong, what's right about this ad with regard to what is being attempted to be communicated?
Well, obviously the purpose of the ad is part of the Arrive Alive campaign, and it's encouraging people to wear their seatbelts, and I support that general message of wearing seatbelts. I buckle up every time I get in my vehicle, but there are lots of ways that we can communicate a message, and one of the first things I teach my students in messaging, creating an ad campaign or trying to get a message across to a mass audience is you have to do audience analysis. You have to think about who is your audience, because you can communicate the same message differently to different audiences. So in this case, just to, my own experience, I've passed this sign dozens of times down on the Manzanella Highway, and I understand the same billboard might be up in other locations as part of this ad campaign across the nation. And the wheelchair features prominently on it. That's what jumps out at you, is this empty manual wheelchair. And it's interesting that it's an empty wheelchair, that you don't see a human being sitting in that wheelchair. It dehumanizes the issue, which I find problematic.
Yes.
But in passing that ad, I never really paid attention to the words, right? And I just assumed it was an ad for a mobility service, like a healthcare services provider who provides wheelchairs for people or things of that sort. And then I noticed the large, bold black letters of buckle up, right? And so I realized it was about buckling up, but then I just assumed, okay, that's great that they're encouraging people in wheelchairs to wear seatbelts, because there are a number of, thousands of accidents every year from people who fall out of their wheelchairs because they don't have a seatbelt. Also, it could be to buckle down the wheelchair in a vehicle. So if you have an accessible van, for example, which there aren't a whole lot of, even in public transportation in Trinidad, but you need to tie it down, you need to strap it in. And it wasn't until I put it all together and I saw the smaller caption in white, consider the consequences, and realized that it was the Alive Alive, that what it was talking about is for an able-bodied person to consider the consequences of not wearing a seatbelt. And the consequence in this case would be the wheelchair.
Right.
And so it's using the mobility device as a scare tactic.
Yeah.
And it's not, there are people in wheelchairs who don't necessarily take offense at this ad. But that's not the issue. The issue is not whether this ad offends people who have disabilities. It's about how it continues to shape common stereotypes and public perceptions of people who have disabilities.
Yeah.
So in this case, instead of using a coffin, instead of showing a crumpled up, crashed vehicle or a bloodied person in a hospital bed, they show a wheelchair as if being in a wheelchair is worse than death.
Right. Yes.
And therefore, a person in a wheelchair is to be pitied. And it just creates this barrier and this obstacle for people in wheelchairs that we don't need. And the fact of the matter is, Lisa, that 2/3 of people in wheelchairs are in a wheelchair not because of an accident, but because they have some sort of disability that they were born with or acquired, such as muscular dystrophy or cerebral palsy, so on and so forth.
As a matter of fact, we had 2 persons on this morning. Today's Tuesday, so it's our regular segment with Shamla Maraj, who of course has cerebral palsy, and she had her guest on, Justin, the poet, and we discussed it with them. I don't know if you saw that, but very interestingly, Shamla... I
saw part of it, yes.
Right, so Shamla was saying that there's a plus and a negative, because now what it does is that it brings, whenever there's a controversy, it draws additional attention to the issue, so that persons who were not even aware that it impacted the lives of persons who live every day in a wheelchair, because you have drawn attention to it, it brings it to light.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. We see this throughout media, right? Mass media, whether it's ad campaigns like this that mean well, that are trying to accomplish a goal that is noble, that we need. You know, wear your seatbelt. But how you communicate your message, and in this case, there's so many different ways that you get the message across. Like in, you know, I'm from the U.S. and a popular and effective ad campaign there to wear seatbelts was click it or tick it.
Right.
Very simple, very catchy, and it, you know, and it was effective, and it doesn't in any way discriminate against any group of people. And I want to add this, Lisa, too. When you think about just the reality of people in wheelchairs, 2/3 of people in wheelchairs are rather of people in wheelchairs who are there because they had an accident or a spinal cord injury. That's only about 1/3 of people who are in wheelchairs. 2/3 of the people in the wheelchairs, you know, didn't get it from an accident. Right?
All right, Dr. Michael Jeffress, we're going to have to leave it there for time, but thank you so much for drawing attention to this issue and for coming on this morning to have this conversation with us. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you for having me and for showcasing this important conversation.
Absolutely. Dr. Michael Jeffress there, lecturer at the University of the West Indies. We're taking a few messages, and when we come back, we have so much more here for you, so stay with us.